So I was reading this Economist article from I think it was a few days ago, and it was in the World This Week section, and the brief update read, in quotes here, Italy infuriated Australia by blocking a shipment of 250,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. This was the first time that an EU member has made use of new blocking powers, recently approved by the EU in response to a row with Britain over shortages of the jab. So this brings me to the idea of the pandemic or vaccine nationalism. And today I just want to touch on. So, hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Alex Kapitko here for a quick little weekend catching up. I finally got a haircut, and I think I lost like 30 pounds in the process just because, wow, like the headset fits better. Life is good. But anyways, I bet some of you remember that back in January, Drew and I did an episode where we kind of talked about our predictions for 2021. And one of them that I mentioned was the rise of vaccine diplomacy, which was the idea about how maybe countries like China or the US might use the development of a vaccine to kind of hold it over countries for diplomatic or international intentions, I guess you could say. And there's kind of another side of this, which is vaccine nationalism. And we're kind of seeing that with Italy, Australia, the US, the UK, the EU, lots of stuff happening. So let's just look more into this a little bit. So The Economist's main article about this, called Shots Fired, starts out by saying that, quotes here, with jabs in short supply, some governments are taking matters into their own hands. On March 4th, Italy and the European Union blocked a shipment of vaccine doses produced by AstraZeneca. It's not the first curb on vaccine exports, nor will it be the last. So first I want to start with this great interview from Scott Gotlieb. He's the ex-FDA director, and he talks about how vaccine nationalism is nothing new, but he talks about how it could cause some issues going forward. So let's just watch a quick little minute of that, okay?
Right. And look, in 2009 with H1N1, we had vaccine that was being manufactured against that flu in Australia and in Canada. And both Australia and Canada wouldn't allow the doses that were destined for the United States to be shipped to America until they had satisfied their local needs. And on the flip side of that, we were manufacturing vaccine in the United States for the UK in a GlaxoSmithKline facility, and we wouldn't let that vaccine leave our country until the Prime Minister called President Bush and implored him to let that vaccine go. So this is not a new issue. In the setting of a public health crisis, you're going to see these nations take actions to protect themselves and make sure that their local needs are satisfied before they allow critical medical products to be shipped outside their borders. Look at Regeneron. Regeneron has two manufacturing facilities, one in Ireland and one in New York. They moved all the drugs that they manufacture in their New York facility over to Ireland to free up their entire New York facility to manufacture the COVID antibody drug. Why would they do that? Why didn't they just make that COVID antibody in their Irish facility? Because I bet they knew that if they had manufactured that COVID antibody in their Irish facility, they wouldn't be able to bring all of it back into the United States. It would have been held on to. So we have long known that there'll be nationalistic activities, not just among unfriendly nations, but among friendly nations in the setting of a public health crisis where people are going to take care of their own interests first.
Yeah, I think this video is important just because it highlights the fact that this nationalism between vaccines is not just between rivals like the US and China. You know, it's between countries like the US and Ireland, or Italy and Australia, countries that are more long-term friends, allies, or at least not rivals. And I think that highlights just kind of how frantic the world is right now with trying to get this vaccine. And, you know, to make this process even more convoluted, I'm looking at more reports from Foreign Policy, and it talks about how since late January, companies wanting to export vaccines from the EU had to basically seek permission from both the country and the European Commission. So say, for example, Germany develops a vaccine and Brazil wants it. Basically, Germany has to approve the shipment of this vaccine, and the European Commission has to. So it's kind of against Brazil's favor because if you know the vaccine's in short supply in Germany or anywhere else in the EU, they're probably not going to let it go to Brazil because, you know, save yourself first, that type of ideology. And also there's reports of lost shipments, missed flights of the AstraZeneca vaccine to places like Latin America and more. And this has kind of just led to chaos. So I think everyone's a little bit on edge, especially countries like Italy, who were hit hard and have some of the vaccine, and they probably don't want to get rid of it. You know what I mean? And like now, this is not just in the West with AstraZeneca. This is also in India, for example. India's Serum Institute, which is like a large vaccine distributor, was criticized, or I guess loved, depending who you are, for saying that they're going to prioritize the Indian people. And I mean, I do get the sentiment, so don't get me wrong. But Also in the United States, for example, the U.S., under Operation Warp Speed and other initiatives, were able to lock down domestic output for the AstraZeneca vaccine as well as others. So I could imagine that's left kind of a bad taste in the mouth of the EU, mainly because they had a shortage and the U.S. locked it down earlier. Yeah, so it's, I mean, it's definitely not a great look. Also, the U.S. and India have both used something similar to the Defense and Protection Act, to prioritize making vaccines in their own country. So it's kind of created a rat race for who gets the vaccine, who's making the vaccine, and who kind of controls where the vaccine goes, which is not a great dynamic for an already kind of polarized world, right? Now, I'm also looking at an article from Reuters from yesterday, and it talks about how the German town of Dessau, I think that's how that's pronounced, was used as a mass vaccination site in the 1920s following the Spanish flu. But now they're actually looking to bring manufacturers all back here so they can basically consolidate all vaccine production inside of Germany. And this article mentions that Germany is joining the ranks of Thailand, the US, Australia, and more to bring all manufacturing for the vaccine home. And obviously, it's very clear what they're trying to do. They want to control the manufacturing so that they can have more of the vaccine. And the premier of Saxony, whose name is Rainer Hasselhoff, says he believes that Germany could become a big swing producer of vaccines, something like their energy industry, and basically control the vaccine. So, this is happening everywhere. And to me, this kind of brings up the bigger issue in which countries like Germany and the US, can just commandeer these factories, right? They can commandeer the means of production because I can't imagine Latin America or Africa or Southeast Asia have those same means. So it really does create this dichotomy of countries that are vaccinated or not. And I know we had Madeline back in, I think it was January, talk about, the Pfizer vaccine and bauxite mines, in Africa. And this is kind of adjacent to that in a lot of ways. It is creating kind of a world that is divided by vaccinated and not. And also, I'll just add, to make matters even more interesting, the Washington Post reports that the UK and the US are being kind of criticized, or I guess we could say are in a spat with the EU over kind of this AstraZeneca chaos. Because, the UK was able to roll out the vaccine quicker, and the EU has more strict regulations, and because there's so many member states, it took a while, so the UK got more doses. It's chaos. It's just chaos. And I understand this is a tough issue, because of course a nation deserves to have the vaccine, especially if they were able to develop it. But not every nation can, and, the pandemic is not national, it's global. So I think we need to take that into account. And over the last year, I think we've kind of seen a backlash over globalization, And if we mix this growing vaccine issue with trade wars, travel restriction, limits on personal protective gear, and more, to me it seems like the world may be kind of getting more hesitant towards one another. When even Italy and Australia are having spats over this, hopefully it goes away, but who knows? Countries might remember that, and I can't help but wonder if this entire pandemic with all these different factors is going to maybe set us back in terms of global cooperation. And this kind of brings me to my final point, and then I'll spare you guys from my ranting here, but I really think that the world needs a better global apparatus to deal with pandemics and vaccinating afterwards. Obviously, we have the World Health Organization, all that jazz, but clearly there's chaos in the rollout of this vaccine. It might get better. Clearly, we're still early on. But also, Prashant Yadav, who is of the Center for Global Development, thinks that all this could have lasting effects, and not good lasting effects. He warns that a reluctance to share vaccines could limit importers' willingness to share information about new diseases going forward, right? Because of this reluctance to work together and this fear that other countries might get ahead of you, we might start hiding information from each other, and that's not good. So I kind of wonder, could the world get into our own closed spheres again? I think the last year shows us that at least it's kind of possible at least. So yeah, take care, guys. Thanks. We'll be back next week, and have a great rest of your weekend. Take care.